Hello, everyone. Thank you for listening to another episode of Dan Tony Sports. My name is Dan Snyder. Tonight, I'm joined by Tony Casper, Dan Beebe, and Chuckles. Dan O'Shea is going to be here in a little bit. He's just running a little late, but we're going to start without him. How are you guys doing tonight?
Great.
Good.
All right, we got ourselves a fun show in store. We're going to talk about CTE. We're going to talk about the Colin Kaepernick situation, and we're going to talk about the Pac-12 football season. But before we do, we have our pigskin poetry. This week, it's not so much a poem as it is a parody of a very popular song. So without further ado, you're going to get to hear Dan Snyder sing. It's the most wonderful time of the year. There'll be Hail Marys for throwing and big leads for blowing and QBs to jeer. It's the most wonderful time of the year. It's the sack happiest season of all. With those Vic Beasley greetings and Von Miller beatings, Luke Kuechly catching the ball. It's the sack happiest season of all. There's Kaepernick for debating and Tom Brady for hating and cringing at Ndamukong Suh. There'll be Derek Carr touchdowns, Pat Peterson rundowns, and Vontae's perfect hits too. It's the most wonderful time of the year. Mocking New York Jets proposing to kicking nets and hearing fans cheer. It's the most wonderful time of the year.
It is the most wonderful time of the year. Amen.
Is it not?
That was
Looking forward to it.
That was not a bad parody. I will say that was well constructed. I like it.
I like the way I fit in that and cringing at Ndamukong Suh. I think that's my favorite part. Either that or the Vic Beasley greetings and Von Miller beatings.
That was one of my favorite lines. That was fantastic. That's actually pretty accurate.
Do you believe he thinks that he can actually get 30 sacks in a season?
You know what? Set the goal high, man. He actually just said that earlier today, and you know what? You're right. You got to try and shoot for that, but it all starts with one. And we know Von Miller's going to put up good sack numbers, but 30 is a 30
That's
goal.
Almost 2 a game.
Yeah, it is 2 a game for the most part. It's just under.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but there's times where he might get 3, so then he's obviously keeping pace with himself, and he's like, well, I only need to get at least 1 in this game, or if I get, playing the line. And if he paces himself the way he wants to, it's fully possible. It really comes down to the offensive line and how often they let him through.
Yeah, I mean, I would hold off on the 30 sack discussion because the record lies with Michael Strahan, who, as a person who hates the Giants, I can say with confidence, probably the second best defensive end of all time.
Okay.
I wouldn't say he's first, but I could definitely see him at second. Reggie White, by far, the best.
I agree.
No question about it.
Bruce Smith was pretty good.
Bruce Smith was pretty good. The other option, depending on where you played him, DeMarcus Ware. He played linebacker D-end. So that's another player that I could see the argument for. But we're not going to talk about them right now. We've got some real serious stuff that we're going to talk about tonight, and that is CTE. Now, for those of you who don't know, CTE is
bad.
Really, really bad. Yeah. All right, so let's start with the simple part. Do you guys know what CTE stands for?
I looked it up.
Dramatics.
Yeah. What's the technical term? There's one of them I would butcher if I tried to pronounce it.
Chronic traumatic
encephalopathy.
Encephalopathy. Encephalopathy.
We'll call it CTE.
Or CTE is a disease found in people who have taken many hits to the head. The disease is especially prevalent in people who engage in contact sports such as boxing and football. Now,
Hockey, probably.
Yeah, I'm sure hockey, dodgeball, potentially.
Anything where your head's has the potential to be hit
Wrestling.
hard.
MMA, yeah, wrestling, WWE, and Greco-Roman, I'm sure. Rugby, probably, yeah. So, pretty much, if you've ever played a sport, you probably have CTE.
Well,
That's what
or
it
you're going to
sounds like.
have it at some point.
Yeah. So, a study was recently done by Boston University that tested the brains of 111 former football players, mostly NFL, and, well, yeah, a little bit of college, a little bit of high school, and the result was startling. Out of the 111 brains that were tested, 110 of them found some trace of CTE. That means literally one did not.
Yes.
That was probably a punter.
No, that's a little diluted because there was clearly the strong settings of CTE. There were 15 that had mild cases of CTE, and there was only one that didn't have any version of it. So, in the 111 case or 100 and what was it, 110 cases, in some way, shape, or form, they had CTE, whether it be early onset or fully developed.
I have a couple questions about the CTE. 44 of them came from offensive, defensive line positions, which a lot of people said that that's a lot. Honestly, I'm surprised it's not higher. I'm surprised it's not 70 to 75 of them were linemen whose brains were found.
True.
One of them being, a football player that I grew up watching, grew up loving. I'm sure you guys did too, who unfortunately took his life a few years back, Junior Seau.
Chargers.
Yeah, so he played the linebacker position, which is basically just a faster lineman.
Right, and I could see, I could definitely see I could see numbers being high at certain positions. Defense because of the tackling, linemen because you have to hit people every single time, quarterbacks from blindside hits, running back because they're going to have to be tackled. I feel like the only people who might be able to skate away a little bit more with it might be wide receivers and cornerbacks, but even that's a stretch. Because anybody can be open to it. All it takes is for you to get a good lick to the head.
Right. So this brings up the questions that I had. Now, how they didn't name all of the players that they tested the brains of. Mm-hmm. First of all, I want to know how long did they play, and how long ago did they play? Are we talking about like 80-year-old people who use leather helmets?
No.
Well, I mean, we need to know the more information. I mean, I think that all helps to develop the test and the study that they're doing. I mean, because if you look at the full study in its whole, there was actually 202 total people that this was done. And what I found reassuring is it clearly, the further up you go up the ladder into the game, obviously the speed of play increases, you're seeing the numbers rise. Because they tested two youths at their time that was, both of them came back with 0 out of the 2. None of them had CTE. At a high school level, it was 3 of the 14. And then you see the spike. In college, it's 48 out of 53 that they did in the test. 9 out of 14 semi-pro players, where you'd expect the speed to be a little bit slower. College, I could understand it being reckless. But even Canadian Football League had 7 of 8.
Yeah, so that leads me to question one thing. Now, obviously, football is a dangerous sport, and there's going to be repercussions no matter what sport you play. If you play basketball, expect to have bad knees for the rest of your life. If you play football, expect to have bad everything for the rest of your life.
Right.
You wrestle, expect to be a walking pharmacy, more or less.
Yeah, if you play baseball, because you're watching the ball come at you, your eyes are strained, you're going to have, more prone to bad eyesight. But the danger of the game, could that be mitigated by just, reteaching proper tackling at the youth level?
Probably not.
Like, I think it can.
Yeah,
I think you're looking at...
We might be able to curb the number. Is it going...
It's not going to go completely away.
No.
No, I don't mean that. Maybe mitigated was a bad word to use. But do you think that...
Well, you do flag football.
Oh, flag football. Get out of here with that flag football. Flag football is what I want my athletes to be playing while they're warming up to get ready for the off season.
But I mean, if we're talking about CTE being caused by, repetitive blows to the head where there's dramatic and traumatic brain injury when there's a concussion, for the amount of concussions there could be, it could even be one. We don't know how many concussions it takes to form CTE in the brain.
Well, the one thing that
could be one concussion that does that, and with it increasing, I feel like it's a something that was well established as a young kid if you were playing football, and could easily be started early, even when your brain's still developing, but then cause more problems later on because of the constant hitting from a young kid. I want to see it compared to someone that doesn't play football at all, that might have played basketball. I hit my head on a wall going up for a layup. I've gotten concussions in basketball from landing wrong.
Funny story. I never got a single concussion playing football. My one concussion came when I walked into a tree.
Really?
What, did it jump out at you?
No, I just wasn't paying attention, looking down, walking, and I got attacked by a tree.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Just admitted that.
Well, that happens.
So I mean, like, how bad could that one concussion be?
Yeah.
Well, that's why. And
Is
that's why
exactly-
we need more study. This is why things like these tests need to continue to happen, but they need to be able to continue to happen at a wider range. We have to look at all other factors. What medication is the person taking? Are they on medication? Is that in any way having effect neurologically?
Yeah, because there are things that happen all the time that aren't sports related, like if you get in a bad car accident. If you walk into a tree.
Yeah.
So it's like, do you take a person that was in a serious car accident at some point in their life, and when they pass away and donate their organs, do you check their brain for CTE when you know that there was one specific incidence that they ended up being in a medical state of coma, or if they just had a very serious concussion? And what's that? What's one
That's
situation?
That's the other thing that I wonder, going back to the question I had posed, kind of not as a joke, but like jokingly said, are these 80-year-old people who played with leather helmets, what did these people die from?
Yeah.
Like, is this like someone who lived to be 80 and had cancer and died from cancer? Or are these all people that, they're testing specifically targeting because they think they'd have CTE?
I mean, that's a good question, but I think the
is it a skewed sample?
factor in the only continuous factor in this is the fact that they all played football at some point. And I think right now the effect is on football. But the question is, how many other people, like we're talking about, that may not have played football go misdiagnosed? Because look at the symptoms: memory loss, impaired judgment, erratic behavior, impulsive behavior, aggression, depression, loss of balance, onset dementia. A lot of that can be misdiagnosed, and it could be a CTE from a car accident.
Well, dementia is a diagnosis in itself, and then you have like Alzheimer's.
Right, but these are like you're getting the onset of dementia, and it can speed up the process in that. So, a lot of these symptoms that you would be experiencing could be as a result of CTE happening, but they could be diagnosed in a different direction because we're not looking at that.
Do you know what I don't want to say I'd like to see, but I want to see the results of Muhammad Ali.
No.
I want to see...
I'm sure he had CTE.
Yeah.
There's no two ways about it.
No, I'm sure he did.
I think most boxers would have CTE.
Except for Floyd Mayweather. He
Okay,
doesn't
so
get hit.
then that raises
That's
the
because he
question with
runs
the
around.
conversation that we just had was it truly, CTE that might have been the cause of everything for Muhammad Ali and misdiagnosed, or was it really, Parkinson's?
Well, that's the other thing. A lot of times, often the most common misdiagnosis for this is just people chalk up a lot of the symptoms to things like old age, which we don't know the age of all these recipients. Were they in their 70s, 60s? Did they die from something else that was not necessarily related to the CTE? Or is often diagnosed as Alzheimer's with memory loss or dementia, or it's diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. So a lot of these other diagnoses, they find out they were diagnosed with this, but it was probably the brain trauma that caused them to exhibit these symptoms that would be associated